And welcome everyone to today's Keptn user group, How to GitOps with Keptn. Today is March 16th. I assume most of you will watch the recording because I see a handful of people here. That's great, but we know from experience that most people watch it. If you're new to Keptn, then you also see a lot of links on the bottom, keptn.sh. Follow us on @KeptnProject. You find the GitHub repository, and very importantly, we also have a dedicated Slack workspace. So make sure if you're not yet on the Keptn Slack, slack.keptn.sh. Other things, it's March. KubeCon is just about 2 months around the corner, which means in case you are at KubeCon, also be reminded that we are there as well. Hopefully we can see each other. Thomas, welcome to just quickly think, almost there, almost the next slide. Do you want to quickly say a couple of words on yourself?
Yes, so hello, my name is Thomas. I'm a principal engineer at Dynatrace and a Keptn maintainer. But as this is the Keptn user group, you might wonder why I am here. And I'm I'm an adopter of Keptn in Dynatrace. So I also collected a lot of experience there and wanted to show you how we do GitOps at Dynatrace with Keptn.
Perfect. And to kick it off, maybe you want to switch to the next slide now. I think Keptn has really come a long way, especially around GitOps. And what you are going to show today is really where a lot of our users want to be in terms of how to actually work with Keptn. And I think if you are sticking with us, what Thomas will show us, how you can just do a simple kubectl apply with a couple of CRDs that will automatically fully configure a Keptn project with the services, with the stages, and onboard your services and deploy them. And I think this is exactly what we expect when we talk about GitOps. But I'll shut up now and I will let the stage to Thomas because you are the main driver behind most of this. So Thomas, take it away. And if there are questions, please folks, use the question feature and I will moderate. But now up to you.
Thank you, Andy. So yes, we'll do some magic today, and I will show you how all of this will work. So at first, what we will see today, we will take a look about the status quo of Keptn today, so how Keptn works at the moment. We will take a look on some challenges which are brought with this. Furthermore, we will take a look on GitOps and Keptn, and we'll take a look how we went from a Git-based approach to GitOps and Keptn. Afterwards, we will take a look on all of this, and we will wrap this up and show you what you can do to improve this. So at first, Keptn is a tool, is mainly driven by CLI and API calls at the moment. And Keptn should orchestrate a lot of tools. And therefore, as this is a very imperative, we have a lot of commands to be executed when we want to create, for example, a new service. When we take a look on the two figures here, we see the tutorial so a full tutorial of Keptn at the moment. And this has at least 18 steps. And when we take a look on the right side of this is only one step of this whole tutorial. And we see there are lots of commands which might be executed when we want to onboard a new service and to add resources for that. So when we take a look on the challenges of all of this, when we are a new Keptn user, we want to deliver software, not to learn Keptn. Keptn should only be a vehicle to run all of this. It should help us, but we might not want to get specialists of the Keptn CLI. Furthermore, we saw that there are many commands we have to execute in a defined order to get our deployment working. So 2 questions a developer or an ops guy might ask when he wants to use Keptn is, how do I update a Helm chart and how do I execute it? And how can I reproduce my deployments? So about 1 year ago, I think I sat at exactly the same place as now, so in a Keptn user group. And I talked about a GitOps operator for Keptn. And yes, in the meanwhile, we got all of this running. We do a lot of deployments per day at Dynatrace with this. So today I saw we have at least 23 deployments of one service with this. This is running really stable, but this approach is mainly dealing with the artifact part of Keptn. So as you might know, Keptn, we are dealing with Helm charts, we have tool configurations and so on. But we are not dealing with the Keptn configuration itself. So we have no real declarative approach for Keptn. We have no Keptn projects. So you have to configure Keptn projects on your own. And what we also saw is that exactly this approach, except of the project, can be used for a recovery of a Keptn instance. So this was a really cool first step towards what we are having now. So I think a few months ago, we thought we need a new approach to get to a real GitOps approach as we know it today. So as we all know, GitOps is an approach which needs declarative configuration of everything and says that a Git repository is the source of truth for Keptn. And in this case, it's important to say that in our case, not the upstream repository is the source of truth for the developer. We have an additional repository for that. The upstream repository of Keptn is simply acting as an internal storage for Keptn, and therefore is not really used by our GitOps approach. Another thing we want to deal with in our declarative and GitOps approach was that Keptn can be configured fully declaratively. So we defined a lot of custom resources for Keptn, as we might see in a few minutes, and we can decide if we want to configure our Keptn simply via kubectl, or we can also take a full GitOps approach and also only point to a Git repository. Furthermore, a Keptn user can decide if an app should be promoted by a pull request, or if Keptn should control the promotion process. So some of you might think about GitOps approaches as, yes, I start the deployment of one stage, run my quality gates, run my tests, and so on. And at the end, I have a new pull request which promotes everything to the next stage. On the other hand, as a Keptn user, you might know that you can let Keptn do your promotion and can do some triggered on events, and therefore let Keptn take this action. And we thought we do not want to take the decision for the user, so the user should take this decision on his own, and therefore both of the options are possible. And another thing we wanted to achieve was that a Keptn user can decide how his configuration and artifacts is separated in repositories. So you can have your artifacts, so the Helm chart and the tool configuration and your Keptn configuration in one repository. You can also split up your project configuration and your service configuration in separate repositories. It is totally irrelevant for us where the repositories are. You can deal with configuration as you want. In our case, for simplicity, we will take only one repository. So let's talk about the big picture, and I think it's a bit unsharp, but I'll try to describe this in a more sharper way.
Thomas, just a quick question on this: is this picture, I believe, also part of the KEPs, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes.
Yeah, and by the way, everyone, I posted the links to the two KEPs, the 67 and 69. So in the chat, everyone should see it, and you can also then see the picture in its full glory and its full resolution.
So you'll get it really pretty. If not, just ping me on the Keptn Slack and I'll send it to you after the presentation. Okay, so when we take a look on the picture, everything starts in the left upper side. So we have a dev-centric part of our whole CI/CD process, which has a code repository. And after everything is built, after we did our unit tests, sometimes integration tests and so on, we might build some artifacts as the container image itself, as a Helm chart, and so on. And they will be pushed to a container registry. So far, so good. This is needed for the artifacts themselves. In a second step, we have the configuration repo we need for our DevOps approach. And this is more for the ops and SRE-centric people of us, where we have the configuration which will be delivered to our infrastructure. And there are two ways to hand over between these two worlds. The first thing would be the more really GitOps-like way, that we have a controller which watches to the container registry, and if something changes here, then we'll change the configuration here. And the second way could be that we have one step in our continuous integration pipeline which pushes to the configuration repo and therefore also triggers the delivery process. And in a second step, we have our new components here. So as you see here, we wrote two operators for Keptn, one which deals with the whole Git part and one who deals with Keptn. So the first one, the Git operator, checks on a regular basis the configuration repo and tries to find out if something changed. And if something changed, we have two things we have to do afterwards. The first thing is we have to deal with our own artifacts. So with Helm charts, with test configurations, and so on. And this is the only thing where we have to interact with the upstream repo in our process, because Keptn needs it there. And the second step is that we apply the configuration we have in our configuration repo on Kubernetes, and therefore create stages, projects, services, and everything we know in Keptn afterwards. On these resources, we have a second operator, so the Keptn operator, which interacts very tightly with the Keptn control plane. So at first, it takes all of the configuration we pushed into the control plane and knows what has to be done to get Keptn exactly into this state. So for instance, we cannot trigger a deployment if a service is not there. And we cannot create a service if the project is not there. And the Keptn operator here contains all of the logic he needs to get Keptn into exactly this state. Finally, everything is happening as we know it. So we have a Keptn execution plane. This can be a different Kubernetes cluster than the Keptn control plane. It can also be the same one. And the execution plane pulls the configuration from the Keptn control plane, also pulls the artifacts from the upstream repo and deploys it to the Kubernetes cluster, and also takes the container images there. So this was the whole big picture of the whole GitOps concept. So at some point in time, and after this talk, you might think this is a really cool approach and I want to get started. So you might want to install this, and therefore some steps have to be done, which I already prepared in my demo now. So the first thing you have to do is you have to create a key pair, because we will deal with secrets in our configuration. So you might have GitHub tokens. Yes, you might have GitHub tokens. And in further consequence, there might be more secrets we will have in the future. Second thing we have to do is we have to install the custom resource definitions for Keptn. We did this, yes, we did this intentionally outside of the Helm chart. Furthermore, we install a Helm chart. And yes, another thing which is very important in this case, the operators we will install here don't have to run necessarily in the control plane. So you can also have your Git repository inside of your lab infrastructure, and you can run your Keptn instance somewhere in the cloud. And you can use the operators to fetch the configuration from your lab infrastructure and to trigger something in Keptn in the cloud. Yes, and you can find everything here in our GitHub repository, and there's also some kind of a documentation of that as if you want to run this. So I think I talked enough. So let's take a look on all of this and how this looks like in practice. So this is my Keptn instance, and this is so I'm using Cloud Automation, so the commercial version of Keptn for this. And I have kind of a code repository for all of the things I'm showing you here. And I created all of my configuration in a directory called .keptn, and you can call the directory however you like. You can configure it however you like, and you only have to point the repository into the correct place. So let's open this, and we'll see some interesting things here. So in the root directory of the .keptn directory, we see all of the Keptn configuration. So we see the Keptn instance, the Keptn project, the Keptn sequence, a service, and we see two other very important directories here. So we see a base directory and a stages directory, and these two directories are needed for our artifacts. So like our Helm chart, like our test configurations, and so on. And at first, we will take a look at the base. And we see one YAML file here. So this is a project meter file. This says, yes, in this file, everything we find in this base directory belongs to the project PotatoHead. And we see a PotatoHead file, and in this directory, everything looks like you know it from the Keptn upstream repo, except one file, and this is this metadata file here, and this contains the version that our approach will get to know all of these artifacts as. So as soon as we push all of these artifacts in our Keptn repository, Keptn will get them to know as the version 001. And this is very important in further consequence. And in all of these directories, we see a lot of configuration which we would have to push manually in the current Keptn CLI approach. And when we apply all of this, we will have our PotatoHead service deployed via Helm. We will have Dynatrace monitoring as code configuration for all of this. So the quality gates, all of the configuration which has to be done for our quality gates, we will trigger inside of this run, is also specified in this repository. We will do some smoke tests using K6. And in the end, we will check our SLIs with Dynatrace. So this is all of the configuration we have in this one directory. We can override everything contained in this configuration in a stage repository, in the stage directory. So when we think of Helm charts, we could create values per stage, and especially for the values file, these changes get merged. So if you define some values for a dev stage, they are only merged into the base. For other files, they are overwritten. But we thought for values files, this is very important as they can be really large and really cumbersome to maintain. And therefore, this is also possible. So this was the whole artifact part of the operator approach. And now we are getting to the real interesting part of the whole approach. So to the configuration of Keptn itself. And therefore, there are two very interesting resources in there. At first, we need to tell Keptn where his instance is, because as you might, as I told you before, the Keptn operators can be clearly separated from the Keptn control plane, so they can run anywhere. Therefore, we need to know where our Keptn API is and how we can authenticate here. In my case, my API is here, and I have my API token here. And as you might see here, we have an RSA. We have written an RSA before all of that. And this says, yes, this is an RSA encrypted string. So we encrypted the API token using the public key, and using the public keys, and we'll decrypt it on the other side using the private key. So this is stored in a way that we can check it in. The second interesting resource we have here is we have a Keptn project here. And this says, yes, I have a Keptn project with the name PotatoHead. This is the upstream repository, which is mandatory at Keptn at the moment, can be found here. And this upstream repository has to exist when we create this, we have a user with the name Keptn CA demo. We also have an RSA encrypted string. And we are using the default branch deploy for all of the things we are doing here. Yes. Okay, so this was the project part. Another part we have here is the stage part. So we could define a Keptn stages in the operator. Currently, in the operator approach, the stages dev, hardening, and production are hard-coded because, as some of you might know, is that the shipyard is currently very static. And you can override the stages. So there is the possibility in the operator that you can define your own stages and your whatever you want. And another very interesting part you see here is that you can define the sequence here. And we don't so we wanted to avoid code duplication as far as we can. Therefore, we created the possibility to create templates for sequences. So yes, you define your stage here. You say, yes, it belongs to the project PotatoHead, and you reference to a sequence called potato delivery dev. In our case, we also have hardening and production because we have some triggered on there. But you could also take potato delivery dev for the stage hardening and production. And this would be a lot of deduplication in your pipeline, in your code there. We also created a custom resource definition for sequences, and this is the thing you saw here. So we also have a Keptn sequence, which is called potato delivery dev, and we have the sequence as we know it, as we have it in Keptn at the moment. And this is also the thing we'll see in a few minutes. Okay, and last but not least, we need services to deploy something. And we can define our service here. So we have a service which is called PotatoHead, which is in the project PotatoHead, and which is really called PotatoHead. This was one of the crutches we built because in Kubernetes you cannot have many two service objects with the same name, but we could have two Keptn projects with which contain services of the same name. So you could have a service PotatoHead in the project PotatoHead, but you can also have a service PotatoHead in the project PotatoHead 1. Therefore, we built this. Another very important part of this is that we have to specify on the service level which event is needed to deploy this service. And this is used by our second service-related custom resource, which is the Keptn service deployment, which defines that yes, we have an object with the name PotatoHead dev. This is for the project PotatoHead and the service PotatoHead as we defined it here. We will define the stage dev in the version 001. And this version is exactly the version we specified in the artifact metadata. So yes, this is the important part of the artifact metadata, because in the deployment we will reference to exactly this. And as you might know, Keptn at the moment, currently we would think in Keptn only in events. So the first approach when we created exactly this mechanism was we have some kind of a Keptn sequence execution, which might trigger an event of artifact delivery in the stage dev and puts on some labels on that. But as we thought as I thought a bit more about this, I thought this would not be a real declarative approach, because in this way I would say, yes, execute this command now. And with this, with the definition of the Keptn service deployment, we created the option, the possibility to declare, to define a deployment itself in a declarative way. Because in this way, in this case, I do not say, yes, Keptn, deploy my version 001, because I simply say, bring my service PotatoHead in the project PotatoHead to the version 001 in the stage dev. And if you do not promote automatically, you could also duplicate this block, put this into a second stage, and also the second stage would be deployed. Okay, so this were all of our custom resources, and now let's get this deployed. So I'll open up a shell, and as you saw in one of the slides before, we want to deploy our demo. And this is our last custom resource, I promise. And this defines the Keptn Git repository. And this is the repository we have in our lab or wherever, which specifies our configuration. And in my case, this is called Keptn CA demo. It's also residing in GitHub. And this is exactly the thing you saw here. Oh, sorry. You saw in the browser before. We are also authenticating with the username Keptn CA demo. We also encrypted our password with RSA, and we say we want to react on the branch main. So you could define every branch you want, and Keptn will listen. Our operator will listen on exactly this branch. So let's close this. And yes, as you see here, our Keptn instance is empty at the moment. So there is only a Dynatrace project which is pre-created by cloud automation, but there is no other project in there. So let's start this, and let's do a simple kubectl apply -f and demo YAML. Hopefully this will work. Okay, and we see that our Keptn Git repository, Keptn SH, and so on is created. And in a few seconds.
So Thomas, also to just reiterate what you've shown, because it's a lot of information, a lot of going through CRDs. From a high level perspective, you have a Git repository where you put all of your configuration. That's your Helm charts, that's your test files, everything in your specific structure, where you allow people to say base files, and then you can even specify specific files for certain stages. Additionally, you specify Keptn configuration like a project service stages. And now you have pointed the Keptn GitOps Operator to that repository, and the GitOps Operator takes care of making sure that Dynatrace is configured, right? The project is created and everything, and all the files from here are also uploaded to the Keptn configuration repository. Yeah, exactly. And then if you have, I think, one of these deployment definitions, then the Keptn operator will also make sure that the deployment is actually triggered, or let's say that way, your system is brought to the desired state, which means you want this certain version to be deployed in a certain stage.
Yes, and as we see here, you saw it before, we did not have a project PotatoHead. But now we have a project PotatoHead. We have a service which is called PotatoHead, and our sequence is triggered. And in this case, there's one thing which is mandatory for this whole approach, and this is kind of a promotion service, which is needed to put all of the versioned artifacts together and to prepare the stage branches of Keptn as we know them. A second step we are taking here is we are creating the Monaco configuration in Dynatrace for the service. And just for those who are interested, everything you see here except the promotion step is done via the Keptn job executor. So we didn't need another service here. So we saw Monaco is also configured. We saw that we have 8 configurations here. And at next, we will deploy, we are deploying all of this via Helm. And yes, this will run in the Kubernetes cluster afterwards. Let's not wait for that. I'll show you later what's happening there. But after this deployment step, we will do some tests. So we will run some load tests using K6 for that. And afterwards, we will evaluate everything, try to find out if our SLI providers, so in our case, Dynatrace, says that everything is okay. Let Keptn take the decision if we can move on to the next stage. And afterwards, we will deploy everything on a hardening and on a production stage. But this takes a few minutes. Might be that we get it, that we see it afterwards.
Hey, quick question here, because you mentioned that on your Keptn, I mean, you're using cloud automation here, which is a hosted version of Keptn's control plane by Dynatrace, but still you have your job executor and also the promotion service. So this is the only thing that really you had to install on your target platform, right?
So the only thing I had to install on my target platform was the job executor, and the promotion service gets shipped with the Keptn operators.
Okay, so that means you have the operator is important that you install that, and the operator, as you said, could run in any environment, because the operator is really just there to monitor your Git repository, and if there's a change on that branch, it will push the configuration to the config repo of Keptn, and then eventually it will also trigger the any sequence that is necessary in case you made any version changes.
So in my case, this demonstration is set up in a way that cloud automation is running at Dynatrace, and the Keptn control plane as well as the operators are running on a GKE cluster. And the repositories for all of this are in GitHub.
Thomas, the Git repository that you've used to initialize this in your demo? I think it's still private. Somebody's
I can
asking
make it public, yes.
if you can make this public, this would be great. Yeah. Because I think this is really cool, and we will. I know I also see Johannes on the call. I mean, this just solves so many problems, and I think that you had two great sentences in your presentation. The first one was developers want to deploy code and not learn Keptn. Obviously, you need to learn parts of Keptn, but it's really we all move everything to CRDs and resource definitions, and it becomes truly declarative. And the next thing I really liked what you said, we moved from a Git-based approach to a true GitOps approach in Keptn, and I think that's really important here.
Okay, so let's get back to the slides. So what did we learn today? So we configured the whole Keptn instance fully declaratively. So we specified everything in custom resources. We put all of our configuration in one repository, and we simply pointed the operators to this repository, and our Keptn got configured fully automatically. What we also saw was all of the secrets we have can be stored in Git. So one thing which could not be done before was to create projects via Git. This can be done now because we also know how to store secrets there. And another thing we learned here was that we can store that our configuration and artifacts are handled separately. So we had the base and stages directory for our artifacts, but they also can be in the same repository. So everything is under control of the customer. Yes, this doesn't get finished now. So what are the next steps for you? So every one of you can try it out, hopefully. There is a Git repository which contains all of the GitHubs Operator stuff. Let's open this up. So I created some kind of a description for the installation. So how you can prepare the keys for the encryption of the secrets, how you can prepare the environment variables to run the Helm upgrade command, and how to install the custom resource definitions. Don't be afraid of the secrets. I also created a helper which helps you to create secrets for the whole GitHubs approach. So you can create a key pair with this. You can encrypt secrets with this, and you can also decrypt them if you want to test everything of that. After you tried it, or if you have some questions, feel free to ping me on the Keptn Slack, or also you can ping Andy if you like it more. But you can also ping some more guys. We have set up a channel which is called VG Keptn GitOps Operator, where you can also discuss features you might want, you might not want, or how we could make all of the whole approach better. And yes, we can make it better together. So if your PR makes sense, I'm sure I will accept it. The whole operator approach will also participate on the Google Summer of Code. So if you like to participate and make the quality of all of this better, feel free to join here. And you can open up GitHub issues, and also yes, and this will also make everything better. And I just wanted to simply get back to Keptn now to show you what happened in the meantime. So in the meantime, our tests ran. So we ran K6 here and saw that everything is okay here. We also ran some kind of evaluation against Dynatrace. We see that our response time is correct, our error rate is perfectly fine, and so on. And last but not least, yes, everything is okay. And we passed over to the next stage, which is also currently in the deployment phase. We'll also test the same thing. and will inform us if everything is okay. So this was it from my side. So I'll give back to Andy, who will drive this home.
Exactly. Yeah. You did all the hard work. I think, well, thank you first of all for all the effort, because I think this is really making an impact, because it gets Keptn closer to what we want Keptn to be. There has been a lot of questions over the last months, at least for me, where people were actually asking, so what's the real Git story with Keptn? And I think what you just showed is that we are moving towards true GitOps. And this is the important piece. The people are also always asking me, what's the difference now? Well, how do we play with Argo? How do we play with Flux? And I think the nice thing here is there's no either or, there's an end, because we obviously can nicely work together. And I think that's also important to understand. I think the benefit of Keptn in this case is that we don't just bring a state and kind of deploy something, but we have the like what Argo I think does, but we have the capability to then really trigger actions, and we call them sequences in Keptn, which means after the deployment we run tests, we evaluate, we notify, and we're basically orchestrating everything. And I recently talked with an organization, and they said this is kind of the missing piece in their current GitOps approach, the overarching orchestrator that is not only saying I'm kicking off a deployment and then I assume it's sometimes done and I need to figure out how I get this status of done, but Keptn will take care of this. I think this is also very important, but everything is declarative and really awesome work. The question for me is, what do we need, and what's the plan? Also, maybe looking at Johannes here, who is also on board. What's the plan of getting this to potentially being part of core of Keptn? Is this the plan? And if so, what does it take? Is there?
If I can jump in, it's definitely not only a value add, it's in the core of Keptn, in the heart, and we do have it on the radar, but currently it's more exploration state where we need to figure out how we really want to have it, and once we have agreed on the Keptn enhancement proposals and the prototype, then it will slightly get into the core of Keptn.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah.
But let's drive it by the community first to really get an understanding what we want to have. And when we have a solid understanding, then it's definitely time to go one step further.
Awesome. And sorry for putting you on the spot, but it's always good to have you on the call. The other thing I wanted to reiterate, and I know Thomas, you said it, but I'm not sure if it was understood correctly. In the very beginning, you said this is something we're using internally, and with we mean the company we work for. It's Dynatrace. Well, Keptn is obviously, we drive it independent of Dynatrace, but we also adopt Keptn internally. We're actually adopting our SaaS hosted version, which we call Cloud Automation. But one interesting stat, you said one of the projects that is using this internally is currently using this approach and is deploying about 23 times a day their services. And this project especially drove a lot of exactly that implementation. And I think this, I wanted to make sure that this is clear. This was not just something we think this has to be done. It evolved out of, we have a need for making this real, and then we implemented it based on a very important project that we have here at Dynatrace internally.
So we wanted to create the GitOps approach in a way how we would like to see it in Dynatrace.
Exactly. Good. There's just a thank you from Christian for the presentation. He will try it out, and I think the majority of the people will probably watch this on a recording. But I give everyone 30 more seconds to take the chance and ask a question in the chat or in the Q&A. We have both Thomas and Johannes still here. And we'll see. 30 more seconds, otherwise we don't have to stretch it.
And otherwise, for everyone who's not on the call here, always feel free to contact us on the Slack channel. And we can also open up a call if you want.
Yeah, I think that's also always good. And also, Thomas, please, it would be great if you could really make your Git repository public. I already posted the link in the general section. Right now, it is private, but once it's public, people can access it. Good. There was another thank you from Chris Lentz. Thank you so much. And with this, I say also thank you, Thomas, Johannes.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.